Hello, good day everyone. My name is J.M. Chris, and for today's video, I will be discussing about the chapter 4 conclusion and the chapter 5 introduction. The chapter 4 talks about the topic visual narratives. When we say visual narrative, in conclusion, this chapter includes different topics which will emphasize about visual narratives, like its meaning, the other connected topics to it, even the people who give their thoughts about it. So, when we say visual narratives, it has two root words, the visual and the narratives. When we say visual, it can be something that is related to sight or seeing. It can be a picture, piece of film, or display used to illustrate or accompany something. So I can say that this visual is somewhat related to our sense of sight. So next is narratives. Narratives, it can be a story, and it comes from the Latin word narrare, which means to relate. It talks about both what is told and the process of telling something. So you are narrating a story to someone and etc. So narratives. In narratives, we have this narratology. When we say narratology, it is the study of narratives. It is the branch of knowledge or literature or liter- literary criticism that deals with the structure and function of narratives and its themes, conventions, and symbols. According to Ernst Gombrich, there must be a great difference between a painting that illustrates a known story and another wishes to tell. So for me, um, there is really a difference between it because different people have different point of view. So for me, a painting that illustrates a known story is because it is the painter who tells his story. Example, painter paint something, so he wants to convey his message through the painting, and not the one who wishes to tell his or her own story is the one who sees or reviewed that particular painting which was made by the painter. So for me, different point of view of different people. Next is events happen. Event, events happen during the Western tradition. Narrative has increasingly retreated from visual text. In the Renaissance period, the development of linear perspective shifted the focus of the viewer from the story being depicted to the illusion of reality of three-dimensional space. So when we say three-dimensional space, it may be sculpture. They may be talk about sculpture in here. Next is in the modern era. In the modern era, narrative was retreated from art, though it is present in graphic novels, films, television, programs, and other visual genres that are committed to a story. So narrative doesn't only limit itself to the artwork that we are doing, like for example paintings, um, drawings, but in today's generations, we also have these graphic novels, films, television programs, which are being used for us to narrate a story or we use it to express ourselves or express the ourselves to everyone for them to understand us or whatever. And then in medieval period, the world was seen as a book of nature, as it is intelligible object that available to be read and containing God's order. So maybe they are talking here about the Bible which contains the God's order. By the Enlightenment, it was an object of observation as it is without a narrative or meaning outside its functionality. So sometimes those things doesn't give us narrations for us to understand it well. Next is in the 20th century. In the 20th century, visual arts turns into abstraction. So from visual arts, it turns into abstraction. So when we say abstractions, it is the story last image can be the decline in certainty about any meaning or possibility of order, freedom from representational qualities in art, not representing things pictorially. So when we say abstraction, it is the way you express yourself through a painting that is not really emphasizing what is your subject. So the examples are here. So in the first one, you cannot really determine what is the thing that they are or the subject that they want to emphasize in here in the first one. In the second one, you can see in here the the person, the black one with a heart. Maybe they are talking about a person who is in the dark side, but around him is the brightest side of everything. Next is in here, I cannot really understand it, but they say it is obstruction. You cannot see or you cannot know what is the subject emphasized by it. Next is as the capability of images to convey narrative, considerable doubt comes in. So not all the time that we can really understand what are being conveyed to us. That is why we can really doubt for something. For example, those abstractions, those abstract arts, we don't know. We doubt what are the things that they want us to know, what they convey, and etc. Next is according to Rosalind Cross, visual texts are highly multiple, layered, and rarely transparent stories. There is always some structural principles and some structure and order to reduce the anarchy of polyphony. Visual works may not easily tell stories, but they have huge narrative potential and great expressive power. So yeah, not all visual works really tell stories or narrate stories. Some are um, just have this expressive power for us to understand what it really conveys to us. So it has the ability to convey emotions, ideas, attitudes, and to direct readers to particular narratives. In the next few chapters, in this chap in this next few chapters, we develop this discussion by moving to discuss the three main narratives of our time. So, because I am just introducing to you this chapter, so I didn't really go deeper. So, we can talk about visual art, the normalizing of visual domain, the relationship between seeing and capitalism, which can be tackled by the other reporters. So next is in chapter 5, we are talking in here about the introduction of visual culture and visual art. So when we say visual art forms that create works that are primarily in nature, such as ceramics, drawing, painting, sculpture, video, printmaking, crafts, photography, filmmaking, and architecture. Also, it doesn't end there. It doesn't limit it there because it also applied arts such as industrial designs, graphic designs, fashion designs, interior designs, and decorative art. So, visual culture. It is the aspect of culture expressed in images. Visual image, it is a mental image that is similar to visual perception. So these are the part of visual arts. First is painting. Painting is usually defined as consisting of some kind of paint applied to some of the surface, usually a flat two-dimensional canvas. So this painting is one of the oldest art forms because during the ancient years, so they began crafting tools and making fire, learning to represent world in pictures. Through cave painting, they are doing that during those days, and until now, it still exists because some people preserve it and maintain it. So another thing is sculpture. When we say sculpture, an artistic form in which hard or plastic materials are worked into three-dimensional artwork or art objects. The designs may be embodied in freestanding objects, in relief on surfaces, or in environment ranging from tableau to context that envelop the spectator. So during my junior high days, let me share to you that you cannot do not limit yourself with this this what do you call these tools or um mm, this because these materials because we also use soap in doing sculpture during my junior high years. So next is drawings. In drawings, these are art or technique of producing images on a surface, usually paper, by means of marks, usually ink, graphite, chalk, charcoal, or crayon. So this is drawings. We sometimes use pencil and ball pen in drawing. So art photography. When we say art photography, the main thing or the main tool that we are using in here is camera. Camera is used to make an art piece that reveals the vision of the artist and makes a statement of vision rather than documenting the subject before the lens. So we are using here camera in doing art photography. Then sometimes we use the environment as our subject or even the people around us. We can use them as our subject. In this chapter, we will answer every question about visual arts, particularly the ways in which visual texts have been understood and deployed in Western tradition as capital A art. So we will tackling in here what is capital A art. Next is we will look specifically at the ways in which art has been transformed in the modern and postmodern societies, particularly through the developments that have occurred in visual communication technologies. So in short, we can tackle in here the evolution and how it is developed in the past until now. So art is generally an extremely visual field or set of practices, even if we look outside the obvious candidates of painting, drawing, and sculpture. So Horace pointed out in his Art of Poetry the connection of poetry and painting. It is connected because other poets and other creative writers use figures of speech like metaphors, tropes, and similes to conjure up mental pictures. Dance, films, and theater are highly visual, and even music that are the most abstract of the arts is frequently associated with visual imagery, which is very obvious that we are using until now. So these are the topic in the chapter 5. So um, you can have a deeper understanding about it through the use of other discussion given by other reporters. So this is J. Frias, and I hope you like it And thank you. Good night, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone.